Hi, everyone. Here's chocolate tonight. Fluffy always makes this into a game and runs down the stairs, but dear Chocolate has the patience to go in front of the lights, and I wanted you to see how his hair is getting longer and he's getting cuter and cuter. They both are getting their hair back from those cuts, and that it is my gratitude to a lot of you who send me cards and letters and emails about your own animals and how much you love them. And those of you who send me photos of your cats and say, show them to Chocolate and Fluffy. Well, tonight I'm sharing Chocolate. One of these days, again, I'll get them both. I'll get a butterfly net and get to get dear Fluffy, who loves to play games. That's the thing. He has a big sense of humor, and he knows exactly when these lights come on. And but tonight, Chocolate, thank you for being here. I love you. I'm going to put you down now, because what I'd like is to talk with you all for a while tonight about increasing numbers of headlines in the news. Antarctica is melting. And there are definitely secrets to be revealed, as you all know, from my work with the whistleblowers Spartan 1 and Spartan 2. Antarctica has been warming and melting faster than scientists expected. 2 years ago, in July of 2017, this massive Larsen C ice shelf collapsed into the Lemaire Channel off the west coast of the Antarctic Peninsula. Larsen C was exposed back in early 2002 when its adjacent ice shelf, the Larsen B, broke apart in less than a month, followed by other nearby glaciers that warmed up and started melting too. They melted as much as 8 times faster than before. That shattering of Larsen B shocked scientists, since no one had previously realized that an ice shelf could disappear so quickly. On the west side of the Antarctic Peninsula, it is warming several times faster than the rest of the Earth. In fact, 90% of the West Antarctic Peninsula's 674 glaciers are now melting rapidly and calving more and more icebergs into the sea, like this big one in Anvord Bay. Winters on the west side of the Antarctic Peninsula have warmed by 9 degrees Fahrenheit since 1950, causing increasing warming and melting of icebergs like this one in Lemaire Channel. This huge iceberg, A56, several times bigger than New York City, it was photographed from the International Space Station after it broke off in 2000 along the Weddell Sea and has been tracked drifting over 1,000 miles in ocean waters since then. But it isn't just the western side of Antarctica that is warming, melting, and breaking off gigantic icebergs. The largest ice shelf in the world is the Ross Ice Shelf bordering the Ross Sea down at the bottom of this map near the American Antarctic base at McMurdo. The Ross Ice Shelf is about the size of Spain, and it has an average thickness of 1,300 feet. This giant iceberg known as B15A broke off from the Ross Ice Shelf in Antarctica in 2003 and drifted out to sea until it broke apart in 2005. And now new research suggests that if the massive Ross Ice Shelf does give way, other land-based glaciers behind it could also head for the ocean waters. If that happened, sea levels would rise 38 feet on this planet. As the Antarctic ice keeps melting, how long will it be until the public is finally officially told about the black octagon entrance near the Beardmore Glacier, about 200 miles from McMurdo, that it is the top entrance to the huge structures that go down and down, layer by layer by layer, at least 1 to 2 miles beneath the Antarctic surface. Next week, here on my May 15th Earthfiles YouTube channel, Please mark your calendars and stay abreast of Lori's announcements. That's when I will broadcast my 4th whistleblower video in my series with Spartan 1 and Spartan 2. I think it's really important, and I hope all of you tell family and friends and everybody to come next May 15th, next week, because we are getting into material that all of us need to understand. More relationships about the past to the present and the future. Now, fortunately, in all of this work that I have been trying to do with Spartan 1 and Spartan 2 and other whistleblowers that have been coming forward because of the videos, that I have received from a number of whistleblowers just recently, that the more I am using communications through a variety of methods to reach out and interact with and work with current military and intelligence people who know a lot about the alien presence on Earth, the Moon, Mars, our solar system, and even beyond in the Milky Way galaxy, that tonight, before we dive into questions and answers, I want to share with you some excerpts from communications since April from a longtime U.S. government computer professional that I will call Dr. S. He writes, "My first UFO event was when I was 6 years old in 1974, and this was Idaho. The next was when I was in the Army in 1986. I am now 51 years old and have to safeguard my career. I've been in and out of the United States government since early 1986. I've been out of the U.S. for almost 20 years, and he means traveling for our government, and just recently moved back. I have worked in security, cybersecurity for over 30 years. I was with government almost every step of the way while I was out of the country. And now I am back and have been basically assigned a handler to work with me to get the things that I design into the hands of the intelligence community." And then he tells me that he has been haunted, in spite of all of this government work and where this is headed. He has been haunted since he was 6 years old, when he was out, quote, looking at the sky and noticed a crescent-shaped object that was moving from the sky toward him. It stopped a little out of reach and a little over my head. I was curious, so I reached out and stepped forward to see if I could touch it. It was maybe a little bigger than a basketball and was bright white, as if it were lighted from the inside. While I was reaching for it, it got a little brighter and moved back a little bit. It felt as if the air around it was colder than it was in the outside temperature, and got colder the closer I got to it. I did manage to touch it. It felt like cold metal. Immediately after I touched it, it disappeared. My hand was still in the air, but my hand, it seemed darker and just a little different. About a week or so later, I started to get flashes of images and memories. These came during the day, and I was not sure what to make of it. The first thing that came to me opening my eyes was that I was lying on a metal silver-covered table. In this memory, I was not able to move anything in my body except for my head. I looked around the room, which was white. At the end of the table, there were 3 beings, which at the time I had no reference, but I have learned since that people call them grays. At the time, I really didn't know how to refer to them. They were short, gray. They had large eyes. They were wearing a silver metallic one-piece uniform, which was to their wrists. They were looking at and handling my tennis shoes. Even though this was strange to me, I was relaxed and I guess intrigued by them being interested in my shoes. He was only 6. Only a little after I opened my eyes, a man and a woman walked into the room from the door that was to my right. The table was pushed against the left-hand wall, and not much longer than what allowed those 3 little beings to stand between the end of the table and the back wall. The man and the woman came in and looked at me. They didn't speak, not out loud, but I could hear them in my head. They asked if I was okay. I was a little disoriented, and though without speaking, which I was just trying to form what I was going to say in my head, I was a little confused at this and not expecting them to acknowledge me as I'm trying to think, as they're thinking in my head, and I thought, I'm okay. Who and what are these 3 things at the end of the table? The man and the woman responded again without opening their mouths into my head. We are glad you are okay. They are helpers from a planet not too far from where we live. At this time, I was able to start moving, and then they helped me to sit up. Still without moving, they asked me and helped me to get off of the table and stand up. They led me out of the room and into a hallway, and they took me just to the left, which it opened into a larger room, and everything was white. But I could see the hallway in either direction, and I could see closed doors into other rooms. But the only ones there were the man and the woman and those 3 little grays, which had also left the room but went down the hallway. At this point, I was looking around and trying to understand, where was I? And they, the man and woman, were in front of me. They continued to speak to me without moving their mouths. And my disorientation was mostly gone, so I was not so much paying attention to what they were saying, but why was I hearing it without them speaking? So I spoke to them out loud, and I asked them how they were doing this in my head. And I asked them to please stop and just talk to me normally, because it was causing my head to hurt, the telepathy. Well, they did stop, and they started talking to me normally. I asked where I was, where are my parents, and why was I there? They said that they would help me understand as much as they could. They said that they were doing like a doctor does when they are checking on me to see if I was okay. They said that what the helpers were doing, the little gray beings, and I said, well, who are they? Where are they from? Why are they helping? The man and the woman said that they were from a planet near where the man and woman were from, that there were 2 planets where they lived, and that one planet was not very friendly. But their helpers came from the nicer of the planets. And I asked where were they from, and they said it was a planet like the one I live on, but very, very far away. I asked if they could show me, and they pointed to a metal plate on the wall behind them, and they explained that they had a different sun that I have, and that the stars that were their suns were very far away and had very different planets. I asked them, where were we right now? And they said that we were out in space near our planet Earth's moon. And they asked if I would like to see. I said yes, and they told me to turn around, and when I did, the wall that was solid and white cleared. It just cleared up like clear window, and then I could see part of our moon to the right, and I could see the Earth to the left and further back. They said that we had been in space for quite some time now, and asked if I would like to go with them to their planet. I said, well, my parents must be wondering where I am. And they told me we had now been away from my planet Earth for 2 weeks of our time. And he became panicked. No, I need to go back to my parents. And I was angry. And they told me that it was okay. And the next thing, the woman looked at me and became calm. She said that the man is going to prepare and make sure that I get back. And it was amazing to me that I just stared out the window. The man came back. He said he could put me back on Earth with my parents, and I would not remember anything. What I do remember is that they were also wearing uniforms, and theirs were almost a light silvery blue. They had blonde hair. They had blue eyes. The man even had a mustache, about average length. And his blonde hair was close to his shoulders. Hers went all the way down the middle of her back. They were friendly, and it was like a very simple, nice, and relaxed experience. And then he wrote another paragraph. As for the blonde non-humans, I don't think it's entirely correct to call them non-human. Other than the surroundings, their clothes, and the telepathy, mind to mind, I don't recall anything that would have made me think that they were anything other than human. But the gray beings, they were definitely not human. And I do only remember seeing the 3 gray beings and the man and the woman. I share this because I have a lot about this man's background, and he still works for our government. And he is communicating because he has been haunted by this experience, and another one in 1986 in the Army, and that there are not many details from people who have been working in our government or the military about blondes. The blonde, blue-eyed, mysterious, enigmatic non-humans, extraterrestrials from other dimensions, other timelines. He felt that he was with beings that to him, as a 6-year-old, seemed like humans. But today, in 2019, as we're going forward, these big questions are there all of the time in the human abduction syndrome. There are about 8 or 9 different types. They all seem to affect and interact with humans in different ways. And if you said, what are the 3 main categories, not just for this century or the last century, but for centuries going back 5,000 years, they would be divided into blonde beings that might be like the curly-haired Sumerians that have been carved in Mesopotamia for at least 5,000 years, standing up alligators or lizards that have been carved in Egyptian hieroglyphs that are related somehow to being interested in the passage of the soul. And then the gray ebens, the ones that are about 5'2", 5'4". Their eyes are not the big slanted. Those seem to be for what might be called androids, cyborgs, clones, a different type. So, as we have talked at the Earthfiles YouTube channel over the last more than a year, off and on about these different types, I thought it was so interesting and wanted to share with you that coming from somebody who is active and would be in the category of a whistleblower, and I have more to learn, that he knows about the Ebens and the blonde, blue-eyed types. For those of you who are listening tonight, and you may yourself have had interactions with the blonde, blue-eyed type, whether you want to call them non-human or whatever, they are a category. Please let me know, because they are in many ways the most enigmatic group. And remember, in part 3 of my Whistleblower series with Spartan 1 and Spartan 2, that Spartan 1 described, he had seen photographs and he had had descriptions, and said that from everything that he had been exposed to, that what we were dealing with were human-looking, but the ones that he was familiar with had no hair. And these details may or may not be significant, but they are the way that we humans divide what we see and interact with. And so I will look forward to hearing from any of you out there who have had firsthand conscious or missing time and then dreams and other memories of the blondes with the blue eyes. And if you can send me any illustrations of what you have encountered along with any encounters you have had, I would greatly appreciate that, because they are very mysterious. And now, Lori, I would love to start what we said last week at the request of our wonderful Earthfiles YouTube audience, that we now go to questions and answers for the whole rest of the program.
Fantastic. Here's our first question tonight. Linda, do you believe that there is a Galactic Council, and are they in fact guarding Earth in ships right now?
That is an excellent question, and it takes me back to the December 1999 Defense Intelligence Agency analyst that I have talked about in various facets of a 7-hour communication with me back then. And I still can remember my own, I've had trouble when I have talked with abductees, and I have always been puzzled and curious when I have talked with people who have worked either in the military or the government, who say, Linda, I know it sounds like Star Trek, but there really is a federation in the Milky Way galaxy. Now, those are words that we have seen in Hollywood films, definitely in Star Trek. And in 2019, as much as I've been exposed to and have listened like that man in December 1999, I don't doubt anything that he told me. But I still remember, and some of you may feel the same way, when you hear about the possibility of a federation, always Star Trek, that I grew up with, and a lot of you did too, it comes to mind, and you say, well, which came first? Is it Hollywood first, and then people talking about a federation after? Or is the really big truth what somebody else told me who worked in the CIA, that Star Trek was a CIA Intel-sponsored series in which Gene Roddenberry was read into some kind of classification program, non-disclosure, never to talk about the scripts that they were really getting from somebody in the government, and that Star Trek was a series that they unfolded with the idea of exposing first the American and then the world public to the various facets that all of us have seen in Star Trek that had to do with battling civilizations, the moving at the speed of light, beams that could teleport up and down, and a federation that Captain Kirk and that spaceship, that they worked for the Federation. Now there is one, I don't know if it is ironic, but if it's true, in a way it is ironic. That DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency analyst, told me back in December of 1999, when he was talking about there really is a federation, Linda. And they have police forces, he said. And he said, Mesopotamia, why has it been a festering sore for 5,000 or more years? He said, because there have been two battling civilizations, the blondes, so he used that color hair, the blondes versus the Ebens. Those are the two big civilizations that he said that our government knew have fought each other. And he said they don't fight each other the way we think of bullets and missiles and bombs. He said they fight each other by mind manipulation, projecting holograms that the human mind and eye cannot tell, discern from anything around us, and neutralizing gravity. Now, he said, the blondes, remember, this is coming from a retiring DIA analyst to me back in December 1999. He said, the blondes, and he called them non-humans, and the gray Ebens, the ones with the pear-shaped heads that make the menagerie of androids, clones, robots, all of that. He said the Ebens are really specialists at AI, and the gray Ebens with their technology and the blondes fight each other, and they are pretty equally matched. And he said to him, he learned this in his job, that the Federation of the Milky Way galaxy wanted to put a stop to all of the cloning of bodies that were being made on Earth, that the blondes and the gray ones could insert themselves into in their wars, and that the bodies that became conscious, intelligent, evolving primates had no idea what was going on, and that there was some ruling by some federation to put a stop to an abuse with genetic bodies and containers on this planet Earth. And that what they sent was a police force, and they were all reptilian. And that is what he said was the irony. Because he said the reptilians are not as sophisticated as the blondes or the gray Ebens. And that the grays and the blonde Ebens could run circles around the reptilians. And you all may feel the same way as I did back in December 1999, trying to absorb this content without feeling like your mind goes, oh no, none of this can be true. Well, that was December of 1999. When my first volume of the 2-volume Glimpses of Other Realities came out, the first volume in 1994, that is a book, Facts and Eyewitnesses. It has a big section of colored and black and white illustrations by people in the human abduction syndrome going back into the 60s, 70s. Nobody knows each other. I had just collected dozens and dozens of illustrations from people that I interviewed, and then I put them in that taxonomy. Well, in that taxonomy that led to Glimpses Volume 2, High Strangeness, that is the book where I put the 100 and some page chapter having to do with a cloning technology in which bodies could be cloned without going through any baby, infant, or growing stage. Many abductees have seen these rows of these cloning tubes sustained by some kind of light, and then they have had downloads or have been demonstrated that those cloned bodies can be occupied by other non-humans, whether in war or whatever. Now, tonight, putting this together in answer to this question about the Federation, I feel that I have always been trying to keep everything about this cloning technology and federations and wars and possible police that come and all of it in little chunks because it all seems so Star Trek incredible. But there is something about where we are at the end of this second decade, going into the 21st century, that it seems like that if those of us who have done these investigations, and in my case, the 3 big books, and about, I don't know, 3,000 or 4,000 radio shows, and dozens of TV, and now the Earthfiles YouTube, if I keep editing, if I keep trying to bring everything down into little morsels that are more digestible, then we're never doing the favor to each other of trying to start weaving together the big picture. And if the big picture is that we are in a galaxy, in a universe of, what is it now? It was only 2 weeks ago, the headline, that with new Hubble information, there are at least 1.5 trillion galaxies in this universe, each one with billions of stars. The complexity of what Earth is inside of a solar system that is in a little arm in the Milky Way galaxy that seems to have several G-spectrum yellow suns like ours, and then some that are orange and red, and all of them seem to have solar systems of some kind around them. Would this little tiny arm in the Milky Way galaxy be the only place with humanoid life, whether reptilian, blonde, beautiful humanoids, gray ebens, 8-foot-tall praying mantises, and on and on? Or is this little tiny arm in the Milky Way galaxy just a lens that lets us look into what is out there in that vast universe? And if so, the idea that there could be intelligences so advanced that they can make any kind of body they want to enter and go to any kind of planet they want with whatever gravity, atmosphere, heat, light, none, whatever, that they can make. This is the concept. Let's say there are 3 big prime intelligences. Well, they can just keep making whatever they want, put them out on planets, claim territory throughout the galaxy with how many androids they get out doing whatever work they want done. And then come big battles over territory, over genetics, by competing primal life forms. If all of that is true, which is what the DIA analyst said, then wouldn't you have to have some kind of a monitoring force that had the best technology, the smartest minds, the greatest AI in the galaxy to try to keep wars under control? So maybe there is a federation. And maybe the reason that Mesopotamia in the Middle East has been a festering sore for 5,000 or more years is because there is something about that part of the earth that 3 life forms want it. Or they want something else and they end up battling with the police, the reptilians that came there long ago. It is at least an educational mind exercise to go through these kinds of questions and answers where we have absolutely no hard proof. But I do think that that Defense Intelligence Agency analyst retiring after 23 years of working for the DIA, as he said that his job was to monitor and analyze the competing and conflicting state of 3 competing extraterrestrial civilizations that have been interacting with and terraforming this planet for at least 270 million years. If that is a big box truth, then our little evolving primate perspective of the last 2 million years, we are at a huge distance from having facts about our own planet, let alone the whole solar system and the other 19 or so yellow suns in this little arm of the Milky Way galaxy, and then out to 1.5 trillion galaxies. We cannot be the only life. And if we were set in motion by competing extraterrestrials 2 million years ago that have been here for 270 million years, I wouldn't be shocked at all anymore. So thank you for asking me a question that really touches a lot of places that I am concerned about now. I'm thinking about trying to figure out myself and wishing that there were a bunch of whistleblowers who could come and show me documents, photographs, and maybe that day will come. So let's keep hanging in there with these questions and answers, and let's go to the next one, Lori.
You got it. So the first thing is we're having many people in the chat talk about how awesome your shirt is tonight.
Well, I thought if copper with stripes was nice last week, I would try this one. And I think I like copper, and I'm glad to hear you guys do too.
And also, many fantastic super chats have come in tonight, so thank you to them.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And your friend Alan Steinfeld is in the chat watching the show,
Oh,
also very interested.
Alan, I'm going to see you at Contact, I think. And that's coming up. That's one thing we should. I'm leaving at it's the May 30th through June 3rd is Contact in the Desert. And I know that the emails that I am getting and the people who are going to be there, it's just going to be so amazing. And there are going to be, as always, some of the best parts of Contact in the Desert are some of these conversations. Already people are lining up. Linda, yeah, let's stay up all night and talk about X. So I'm really looking forward to it. And oh, I wish that hundreds of you on the other side of this camera at Earthfiles YouTube channel could be there so that we could shake hands, hug, and that I would start meeting even more of you who are coming to the Earthfiles YouTube channel, because I really would like this to be my center ring, communicating with you all and being able to talk as openly and honestly and frankly as I have been on that first question, which is sometimes hard to do in a public forum, believe it or not. You have to be more edited. And on the Earthfiles YouTube channel, I feel like we are staying up all night and we are talking about subjects in a wide-ranging field without a lot of restrictions, which is where I hope the whole planet can move. So, Lori, let's take another question and thank everybody. And for those of you who do make contact at the end of this month, please come shake my hand and we can have one of those. We are part of the Earthfiles YouTube channel audience. Thank you.
The next question is, Linda, have you ever been warned off reporting on the things that you have reported previously on, or even now? Thanks, from the UK.
Yes, this is a very interesting and timely question. I have, over the last 40 years, there have been times of really serious threats. And I've deliberately chosen not to go into them publicly because I did not want anyone, and especially not the government of the United States, to think that I, as an American journalist, would just stop and roll over if somebody stands in front of me with a gun. That happened once. If somebody comes up to me at a conference and says, I've seen you in X and you were wearing Y, and it's intimidation. Because if I stress that part of what has been for me in many ways a razor blade landscape, then all of you would be concerned about trying to learn about the subjects that I think are vital. This is the truth. We're talking about the truth. We're not talking about the political manipulations. And eventually, right now, on several fronts, I have had warnings. But I am making a decision that, just like back in the 80s, it's better for me not to talk about or go into it at all. And that you all will know that I will, to the best of my ability, I will humbly keep trying to put one foot in front of the other for as long as I can. And that ultimately, if I am shot or some violence, some clear violence is directed at me, or some sudden something that makes no sense, then look at me as the canary in the coal mine. Because there is absolutely no reason, if the United States of America is going to remain any kind of a democracy honoring the Constitution. The battle is going on in television right now. In a strange, core soul way. Everything that I'm doing now and trying to do is like, don't give up. Don't give in to the forces that seem to want this country to become a totalitarian state in which the power brokers will be able to order any of us or kill any of us. There was a journalist in England who was killed, 29-year-old girl, about 3 weeks ago. She wasn't doing anything wrong either. She was doing, I think, trying to understand facts and report them is one of the most vital actions that this planet needs more of everywhere. And that there is something about the work of trying to be a reporter who goes after facts, honors the pressure of fact. It is the difficulty that we're all facing now at this juncture in 2019 and going forward, that in a way every reporter, no matter who they are reporting for, is kind of like a metaphor, a wind vane. What is going to happen? What is going to happen to reporting and news in the United States? So it's much bigger. It's much bigger than a person. It is fundamentally at the core of whether or not this is going to be a government of, by, and for the people. is telling the world, let alone the United States. We're not alone. We never have been. This cosmos is teeming with consciousness. And the issue before us every day now is, when are we going to be given the respect as human beings by other human beings in power? That we are given facts about who do all of these people in military and intel since World War II, who do they know about? What are the agendas? What are the motives? What are the interstellar trade routes? Why are we as a human population being left out of the biggest headline, the biggest story of all time? And that the bottom clincher is that for 2 million years, all of the evolving primates on this planet were set in motion by DNA manipulation of already evolving primates to create Homo sapien. I'm not afraid of that fact. I find strength in having so many people in intel and military who have confirmed, yes, that is the truth. And if on the other side of that statement is the truth, who? Which ones of these other intelligences? Clearly, there is history. Some would say mythology. I'm convinced it's absolute history about the Anunnaki, and the Anunnaki to the Sumerians, and the Akkadians, and the Assyrians, and that whole Mesopotamia part of the planet. That when you stand back and look at the world today, it is still festering. And it's exactly what that DIA analyst told me in December 1999. The festering of Mesopotamia by 3 competing extraterrestrial groups manipulating humans in their conflicts is what the Middle East today is still all about. And when you start thinking about that, you start analyzing, what are the implications? Where does it end? And when are we told the truth? That's what I'm fighting for. And if there are threats, what are the threats about? The threats that I am trying every day of my life, every Wednesday here at the Earthfiles YouTube channel, everywhere I go, I am simply trying to report facts, eyewitnesses, testimonies from people that have served in military and government about what they say. There are other intelligences, not only on this planet, on the moon, on Mars, throughout the solar system right now, have been in the past, and it goes on out throughout the entire Milky Way galaxy. Wouldn't it be wonderful to be here all together on a night in the near future where let the chips fall where they may, and that all the governments of this planet finally decided that it is more important for you, me, and all humans to understand the truth than to constantly have the power brokers of Earth taking orders from something else that is in the category of alien intelligences who compete with each other through manipulation of us and this planet. If we become conscious, I think it could be the beginning of some kind of new freedom for humans. And that's why I feel like I'm in the French Resistance all the time. So, yes, I get threats, but I'm not going to stop. What about another question?
You bet. Just so you know, during the time that you were speaking, you received hundreds and hundreds of people thanking you for your bravery, thanking you for what you do, and appreciating the struggle that you go through every day to bring them this information.
I love you. I love all of you. You are as important as any of us trying to find the truth. Because this audience is growing, that you want the truth, because you know that we're being lied to up the kazoo in so many different directions. You give me the energy to keep going. So I humbly thank you. Another question.
Our next question is, what do you think about the idea that Antarctica was frozen on purpose and is now being melted again because the beings will return on periodic cycles?
You know, that is one of the best questions, because it was only 2 weeks ago in a very private conversation with absolutely no hard evidence. But because I have been reporting and talking about Spartan 1 and Spartan 2, and that I have been trying so hard, I have read so many papers about what is the history of Antarctica when it comes to ice and ice buildup. And I was in a discussion with somebody who has a science background, and we were talking about this strange, it's really, I'm now beginning to understand that it is a much bigger mystery than even I thought when I started doing all the research. What happened 34 million to 33 million years ago that Antarctica, going for at least 100 million years, or 70 to 100, it broke off of Africa, the South African point, and took 70 to 100 million years, depends on where you start, and you see all kinds of arguments about when and where, but it's pretty much agreed, at least for a solid 70 million years, that it was hot, tropical, and here's this big round continent. It's coming down, passes the equator, keeps going. Why is it doing this? Gets all the way down to what we call the magnetic South Pole today, and it's still hot. It's tropical. What happened? 34 million to 33, because it's a million years in there, which in geological time is like an hour. From 34 million to 33 million, it went from hot and tropical to ice building up all over the entire continent. And the truth is, if you did a journey yourself, starting into the question in whatever is your favorite search, and you start trying to find out when was the last time that Antarctica was completely free of ice, and then what happened? Nobody really knows. It's kind of astonishing. That was in that discussion 2 weeks ago. It is still such a mystery. And if Antarctica is truly, I guess I want to say, home base, or has been, because, okay, let's take Spartan 1 and 2. He says that there are at least 6 62-acre each structures that have 9-acre rooms. That's 3 acres by 3 acres, perfect squares. A 9-acre room. We have been working with computer graphics to try to keep generating what would a 9-acre room look like. And if you go 3 acres and 3 acres and you're standing here in the corner, you wouldn't be able to see detail on the so-called wall or ramp that would be 3 acres from you. You would only begin to see it as you walk toward it, which is what Spartan 1 said, that it took him about 15 minutes to walk from one end to the other. And we had a discussion about, well, you would go 3 acres faster than 15 minutes. But if you are there for the first time and you're looking and you've got assignments to look at X, Y, and Z. That may be why he says it took him 15 minutes. But why the big structures has to be preceded by when and how could any intelligence build 9-acre room structures that each big complex of huge rooms is on 62 acres. So half a dozen 62-acre structures. And Spartan 1 said that in some of the big, like the 9-acre room that he was walking through, that the ceiling was about 40 feet high and there were no supports. How do you have huge 9-acre square rooms with some kind of a ceiling, floors, walls, but is not, and they're all covered with glyphs, but they aren't supporting the ceiling? What is that? And what is sustaining all of that energy? Well, all of this comes down to, wouldn't it had to have been free of ice to build these gigantic structures? There's another Navy SEAL, not in the video, who told me he had been down there in 2012. This is after Spartan 1 in 2003. He said in 2012 that he was in a room that was an 80-foot high ceiling, no support structures. Well, how would you build unless you built all of these huge structures without the ice there? Or let's just say that seems logical, that you would build such huge structures without the ice. So then you speculate and say, well, if you go back to 34 million years ago, it was definitely tropical. There was no ice and snow. But by 33 million years, it was starting to cover up with ice really thick. So in that 1 million years, these structures could have been built. And in that discussion about could non-humans have done this on purpose, here was what was presented to me. That in that 34 million to 33 million period, all of these structures by another intelligence, clearly having nothing to do with Homo erectus. Homo erectus and Homo sapien don't come until just the last 2 million years. We're talking about events taking place in Antarctica 34 to 33 million years ago. So, what if something really advanced wants these specific structures with the black sun carved, the various star charts, all of the stuff that Spartan 1 saw there, and they want it covered up? And that they know how to build and energize anything through self-activating software throughout the entire structure, no matter how big the structures are. But they don't want the rest of Earth or whatever it is that they are competing with, because we don't know exactly all the details that the DIA analyst says that they have been competing for 270 million years, 3 civilizations. So that an act of putting a lot of ice on top of huge structures in which the ice would have no impact whatsoever because they were neutralizing gravity in their structure and energizing all at the same time. And in that discussion, we were talking about this also very interesting question. I've now got 2 eyewitnesses, not just Spartan 1, another Navy SEAL who was there in 2012. They are both familiar and describing the walls where the energy moves with glow, huge spaces that seem to have some kind of a ceiling but no support structures. They don't understand what they're looking at all. And then the question, what if every billionth of a square inch of all of the material, of all of the 6 sites, each covering 62 acres for 33 to 34 million years, have been designed that it doesn't matter what is happening on the Earth matter world, that they could have snow come and ice 1 to 3 miles thick. There are parts of Antarctica that it's 3 miles of ice, and others 2 and 1. And in that discussion 2 weeks ago, the question was, how could any structure that humans would make on this Earth be able to sustain 1, 2, and 3 miles of ice? Nothing we would build could withstand it, which then reinforces what the 2 military people said in astonishment. How do you have ceilings without any support? Advanced artificial intelligence built holographically throughout all of the structure, every billionth of an inch of all of the structures, huge self-activating sites. And then the ultimate question, why are we on the surface not being shown and told about all of this? If there's an intelligence that is still there, and it operates from its Antarctic base, and it's in its interests for us not to know, then it might explain why human military and intelligence policies have been nobody is to know. But as I began at the beginning of this YouTube broadcast, Antarctica itself is now melting fast as global warming is taking hold of our planet. If something had the ability to put all of that ice over all of their structures to hide on purpose because they knew that their structures would not be interacted with by the ice, would they then come back, or somebody else counter, with causing a warming that would melt the ice and expose it? It sounds like we are describing a TV series that could be very interesting, like Game of Thrones. And what I would really like to know are the hard facts. Who, when, why, how do they do what they do? And what is the relationship of whatever this intelligence is that built these definite huge structures that are now under ice in Antarctica? That is a fact. They are there. Who and what and why and when will we all be told? That is one of the inertial steps that are going forward, I think, right now, and that Mother Nature melting ice is exposing off and on some of these structures. So it seems that it's just a matter of time that it will be exposed by itself, or we will be told we're not alone in this universe and never have been, and this Earth has been actively used by intelligences that compete for a long time, and that Antarctica would be then shown to all of us. But the thing I worry about is what political slant will power brokers give to whatever is revealed? And that's the constant problem, and why myself and other reporters who are taking all of this very seriously, I hope we're always going to be protected by something like a constitution from our governments, and that we will be able to learn the truth and report it and show it. And onward. Let's see. we've come to the end of this hour, and I realize that what would be a challenge to me is to do this again, not next week, but at a time coming up, maybe in June, where I will promise I will try to give 1 to 2 minute answers only. As people who know me, I go into kind of a mental tunnel and I see things and I can talk for, I guess it seems not long to me, but I guess it goes on and I eat up the time. And I hope tonight, anyway, this was kind of special. We got into some really special parts that are kind of an anticipation to next week. And on May 15th, get as many people as you can to come with you for the broadcast of part 4. And then in June, I promise, we will do an Earthfiles YouTube broadcast. Lori will announce it. And I will hold myself with a stopwatch to no longer than 2 minutes, and I'll get in more questions. And then I can hear you in your mind as I hear in mine. But these are not 2-minute answer questions because we're dealing with other intelligences in this universe and what our relationship could be to them. But I will truly try and we'll get in a whole bunch more questions. And I thank all of you truly from my soul to yours. Hopefully we are going to be able to stand strong against political forces that always seem to want to manipulate us. And that I pray every day that we're going to move to a new time when humans are not so abused by fellow humans and other forces. And on that note, down with entropy, up with light, and I'll see some of you at contact.